What do you think the most important issue facing our country is?
Our country's in decline. I don't think it's inevitable. I think it's a choice. We're a country with an economy, not the other way around. We're citizens of a republic. We're not just cogs in the wheel of a global economic empire. And so I think to have a good economy means if you work hard, if you play by the rules, you get the most of your God-given talent, you should be able to succeed in this country. You should be able to raise a family, afford a home, a car, all these different things. And we've lost a lot of that in recent years. We need to get it back.
Florida governor and 2024 presidential candidate Ron DeSantis unveiling his economic agenda yesterday. He's vowing to take aim at China, government bureaucrats, ESG policies, and the elites. The Wall Street Journal editorial board praising DeSantis' focus on the economy, writing he is, quote, offering voters a substantive agenda while talking about Florida's successes. And it's a more presidential look than, well, brawling with Disney. Joining me now is Georgia Congressman Richard McCormick. He's a member of the House Foreign Affairs, Armed Services, and Republican Study Committees. He's also a member of the GOP Doctors Caucus. And we have questions about if you're a Bulldogs fan or not. Congressman, we will start, though. I've got Doug Collins on set with me, but we do want to start with first your reaction to Ron DeSantis' economic agenda. The Journal was fairly complimentary.
As it should be. Anytime that a serious contender has a plan, a definitive plan, and has proven himself really in a leadership position in one of the most robust economies in the United States, in Florida, who has attracted lots of money from lots of different parts of the world, especially from other migrants who are Republicans who have come there to thrive. He's proven himself. He's grown his popularity by almost 20 points in the last 4 years, simultaneously having a great plan that's working there. Knows what he's doing, has proven what he's doing, and I think that's a good thing for somebody who's running for president.
But are you concerned? I mean, I know that you've endorsed Governor DeSantis, but are you concerned about his weak poll numbers?
It's really early. A lot of people are still burned out from the last election cycle. I think the people who actually answer their phones are of a certain opinion, and that's okay. I remember it was this time in the last election cycle that Trump was way behind, and I know that polls have always been wildly inaccurate this time of year especially. I'm not so worried about that. When people start really paying attention to the person who's taking this seriously, who has a plan, who's proven, who's growing his popularity while growing his economy, I think they'll see the choice is clear.
Okay, well, your former colleague, Doug Collins, is here, a fellow Georgian, and you actually, Doug, you did make that point earlier about that it's early in the cycle.
Hey, good morning, Rich. Hey, one of the things is, too, is you talk about early polling, but also one of the things I'm concerned about a little bit, and I know you've been good at messaging, and you and I have been on the campaign trail together, is that we've got to make this logical to people who are coming in who don't follow the news cycle all the time. They're not junkies to, say what's going on or the big macro picture. How do you see this playing out for DeSantis, even for Trump and for others in this ticket, to counteract what Biden is trying to make a false narrative of an economy that's okay? And we see that in Georgia all the time, and I think that's what's making a difference. How do you see us getting that message out?
Well, one of the things that's going to happen as the energy prices increase, as unemployment starts to falter, the people will really start to pay attention. When they do, they'll be looking for somebody who actually has a definitive plan, somebody who's looking forward, somebody who's visionary, somebody who understands the American dream and how it's been accomplished for so long. That's when they're really going to start paying attention to who has the solutions for what our problems are.
Well, I want to ask you about the controversy surrounding the Biden family. Hunter Biden's former business partner, Devon Archer, telling lawmakers then Vice President Joe Biden joined more than 20 of Hunter's business dinners. Oversight Committee Chairman Comer also revealing that Hunter and Burisma executives called Washington, D.C. in 2015, asking the Obama administration to help fire the Ukrainian prosecutor investigating the firm. Here is Joe Biden bragging about it back in January of 2018. Listen.
I said, you're not getting the billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
All of this ties into what we heard, or what, let's be clear here, the committee heard from Devon Archer yesterday. The timing is the same.
The hypocrisy is the same. It's amazing how they used that to go after Trump when Trump just asked the question, what the heck? Why would this person get away with this? And all of a sudden, Trump was the one under investigation. The way the media covered it, the way the DOJ, the way the FBI, everybody who was involved, all the bureaucracies, really shows the amount of corruption that's involved in this. I think now that it's obvious that he not only was aware of Hunter's business dealings, but actually present at them, now there's going to be a lot of explaining to do. He's caught in a lie. I hope we continue to tighten that noose and we actually get this done.
Before you go, I do want to ask you about this, considering one of the committees that you're serving on right now. The New York Post editorial board says that Dr. Anthony Fauci lied under oath about the origins of the coronavirus. They write, how many more of these damning revelations is it going to take before Fauci and co. face a single consequence for their actions? Kentucky Senator Rand Paul sending an official criminal referral for Dr. Fauci to the Justice Department. Congressman, what is your take on that?
Well, good thing is we have some hearings coming up, and I happen to be on this special subcommittee for coronavirus. As a doctor who's served during the entire pandemic, it's obvious he's wrong. It's obvious he covered up. There's lots of emails that point to that. I can't wait to get him on the stand. I can't wait to continue to expose the lies and actually hold him accountable. A lot of people died. We can't learn from our lessons if we're not being honest. And the fact that he tried to cover it up rather than just being honest with the public shows that he doesn't want to learn from this. He just wants to cover his own butt.
He's happily retired and making millions on books and speaking. And apparently, last I checked, still had a nice security detail that the taxpayers were paying for. Congressman Richard McCormick, it's good to see you. Oh, by the way, Bulldogs fan? Did we just settle that?
I am definitely a Bulldogs fan.
There we
Enjoyed watching them win the championship.
There we go. Go Dogs, baby.
All right, go Dogs. It's a Georgia kind of morning on Mornings with Maria.